Hello everybody, welcome back. Today's kind of casual, you can't see, but I have my feet up, and I have my Shrek the Third McDonald's glass of unnamed brown soda. That's everything that I need right there. And today, we're going to be talking about this bad boy right here. As you can see, I managed to get a food stain on it because I'm a messy trash gremlin, and that's just who I am. This is my sketchbook project, Sketchbook, and I'm actually like halfway through it because it turns out that it's only 16 pages, which is just like tiny. And I mean, I didn't expect it to be huge, and it honestly really does feel like enough in it because 16 drawings is a pretty significant sampling of somebody's work, I think. But they're pretty small. So I have moved through this like super quickly because I eat sketchbooks. I just consume them. Like when I am being active with my drawing and my sketchbook use, I can go through a sketchbook in as quick as a month, usually 2 or 3, and that's something that's like between 60 and 100 pages. Something that's 16 pages long is not going to last me long. But I actually took a little bit of a break from it because I wanted to stop and make this video, and it took me much longer than I wanted to make this. But I thought we would do something a little different, a little fun, a little fresh. So I've taken a time-lapse video of my most recent drawing in the sketchbook, which is this one here. And I'm going to talk to you about my feelings that I have developed over the halfway point of this project while I play that video for you. So I hope you enjoy that, and let's get started. So the first thing that you're going to see, just a little flip through of some of the things I've been doing in the sketchbook, little preview at them before they're going to be found digitally archived on the Sketchbook project website. Next is going to be the actual drawing, and just to let you know, this is played at ×2 speed, just to give you an idea of what kind of time lapse it is. And now I'm going to get into talking about the sketchbook. As I mentioned earlier, it did turn out to be tiny, to be like 16 pages, which it felt so much meatier like every time I was flipping through it. And I think that not being aware of that at the beginning led me to not fully appreciate how sort of precious each one of those drawings were. I also don't know if that's like 16 for sure, because you saw I have like a drawing on that very front internal page, and I don't know if that's going to count as a page. I hope it does. So I don't know if that'll be digitally archived, but it will exist if a person picks up that sketchbook in the library and physically looks at it. So it does exist in that sense. Another thing that I found out when I went to register my sketchbook is that I was supposed to have a theme, which I completely did not know before I started getting into all of the drawing. I was just sketching, I was just being me, I was just doing whatever I do, but there's like a predetermined list of themes that are a jumping off point, and your sketchbook doesn't have to be hard and fast representative of the theme you pick. You also have to title it, which I hate titling my work. It's the thing I hate most about uploading stuff, is that you have to title it. I think I don't know, I find it like a very cringe process. It really induces cringe in me to name my work. It feels very self-important. But that's something to keep in mind. If you're going to do this on the next round, you're going to start your own sketchbook project, is that you should register it before you start drawing in it, or at least look at the list of themes and pick one to use, and you can keep a title in mind. Another thing I found out when I went to actually register it was that your sketchbook is marked as having adult content or not. So that's something to keep in mind if you want to make your sketchbook as accessible as possible, or if you just want to do whatever you do, which might include adult content. Personally, I have been making art with what could be considered adult content since I was in high school. I think if anyone was in a decent high school art course, they probably experienced that allowance to explore the human form, and it's not always sexual or debaucherous or necessarily tasteless in nature in my art, but sometimes it is tasteless in nature because I think it's fun at times to be a little provocative and tasteless. But, you know, that's just me. A little trashy, not so classy. The next point I wanted to make about the sketchbook project sort of relates back to that limited amount of pages, and I really at the beginning was treating this like my sketchbook. I wanted it to feel like a piece of my artwork, of my sketchbook collection, was archived in a library of sketchbooks. And I just don't think that led to me taking the best approach. I kind of regret that approach. I have made drawings in my sketchbook. One is like a sketch and another is like a more realized version of the sketch. And I'm like, oh, I wasted 2 pages on one idea and I wish I was exploring more. And every drawing I do, I'm like, oh, this isn't the best use of this like super cool piece of my art. And I feel like I'm starting to treat it more like an exhibition, and that comes down to it having so few pages. And I don't know if that's good or if that's bad, and I don't think the project is to be blamed, because realistically, how many pages could they give every artist, could they archive? Because it wasn't exactly cheap to do this. So if they had more pages, I can only imagine how exponentially that would increase the cost, not just of receiving the sketchbook, but of archiving the sketchbook, of having it digitally archived, which is one of my favorite things about this opportunity, is that I can have my sketchbook digitally archived to share with so many people. The next bit I want to talk about with my sketchbook experience is the experience of actually carrying it around and taking it with me like I would a regular sketchbook. And because it is a little less resilient than the average sketchbook, I found myself being really worried about it. And one time that I try and sneak in some sketching time is on my lunch break at work. But I do this in the break room because it's not that much time to start with. So I don't want to waste time walking out to my car and stuff. So that is where it got the food stain on it. And if I could have, I really wish I would have just kept it at home and kind of made it like a more personal sketching experience, a more protected sketching experience, because now it's going to have food stain on it forever in the library archive, and that's disappointing. So that's one way it was less resilient than I thought it might be. And one thing you're going to see in this time lapse is that I used some art markers on this drawing, and it held up pretty well. The paper did not fray at all. It didn't fall apart. It those little fuzzies in it. It did go through the page a little bit, so I have a piece of paper underneath here to catch that bleed through. So if you do anything heavier, if you do markers, if you do watercolor paints, I highly recommend putting a piece of paper underneath it to catch that bleeding, so you preserve the page underneath, because every page in the sketchbook is so precious as well. But other than that, it really took the ink really well. I was able to blend on it. I was able to achieve the effects that I wanted to, which is nice, because if I am gonna have this showcase of my work, I really think it's cool to showcase different facets and different sides of my work and not just use graphite. So going forward in the sketchbook, I'm going to try and do more of that. I'm going to be keeping it at home, even though I love its little carrying case envelope so much, and I really wanted to carry it around in that. Another limitation of there being so few pages is it's hard to color test on this paper. The paper's a little off-white, so as you can see, I'm color testing on that piece of paper I have underneath, because if you ever worked with ink markers, sometimes the color of the tip and the color indicated on the cap are really not true to the color you get on the page, and how they're going to work together and how they're going to blend isn't always clear. So you can't really have space to test if you're going to use that whole sheet of paper if you just don't want to put that on the paper. Because in my other sketchbooks that have a lot of pages, I'll usually pull a page out that I will use for color testing. If you're really serious, you can even make a color chart, but you can never do that with this paper because there's only 16 pages, maybe 17. All right, so I've hammered home this point of the 16 pages. It was shocking to me because I really just realized it before this video. So enough with that. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the feeling of drawing in this sketchbook mentally, knowing what it is, and I've talked about that a little bit, but just when I first started, I thought I would get psyched out, and I totally did. I was just like, the drawings I do in the sketchbook are not going to be good enough. I didn't know how to start. I'm like, gosh, like, what's representative of my work? Because as an artist, I have a fairly eclectic style. I do a lot of different things. I do things that are cute, and I do things that are gross, and I do things that are pretty. I do know I have some fallbacks. I have some things that are really me. So I guess I decided to start with my comfort zone because this is my sketchbook, and I think that was the best way for me to get the ball rolling, was to start with something that was really comfortable, that I really knew, and even a lot of what I have been doing in the sketchbook has still been being in my comfort zone, as I'm only 8 drawings, and I think I'm really now at this halfway point getting into the swing of it. I know more what I want for this project for myself, and I imagine that that's going to be kind of fundamental to the experience, is like finding your footing in this small sketchbook, this big project that you have such little room to work with. And I don't know, it's kind of limiting, and I think it's to be expected, but it's just like a snippet. It's a snapshot. It's a cool piece of you and your artwork. It's a little book of doodles. It's a sketchbook. It's not the most important thing you'll do, and I think as artists we don't always appreciate how much our style and our substance and the essence of our artwork comes through in even all the small things you do. You know, you ever post like a doodle and people flip out about it, and it's never like the work that you put all of the time into that people seem to freak out about. So I think if you personally are going to approach this project, my recommendation for you would be, as of my experience at the halfway point, register your sketchbook before you start drawing in it, so you know what the theme is and you know what you're going to be doing, and you have an idea of what the project actually is before you start doing it. You shouldn't go in blind because that would be not very smart of you. And just start with like a really comfortable kind of drawing for yourself. Maybe like an exercise or a thing you always find yourself doodling, or just something you draw that feels not necessarily lower effort, but comfortable. It's going to flow from you. It's going to get the ball rolling. It's going to get the project started. And just to not be afraid of messing up. Like, it's a sketchbook. It's not your professional quality work. It's not something you're selling. It is kind of an intimate experience, a little piece of what you do, and not a huge deal to be freaked out about, even though it feels like a huge deal. And it kind of is a huge deal, but like, try not to freak out about it. Alright, so I do think I've said everything I can say at this point about the sketchbook at my midway point, so I'll spare you more of me trying to dig content out of that, and I'll talk about my process video and the process of this drawing a little bit. So, as you've seen, I started with a graphite sketch. I did art markers over top of that to add the color, and then after I've done that, I'm going back and adding the lines, and this is something I have experimented with a little bit, and I think it does, in a lot of cases, make the finished line work stronger if you do it at the end, which is something I really started doing line art and digital art and it's a whole different beast in traditional art. And now I'm going back with one of my favorite things, which is something that is also harder to do traditionally than it is digitally, is add beautiful little pure white highlights to make beautiful reflections and make things look really shiny and sharp. This is a gel pen. I've yet to find like the perfect shiny highlight gel pen, because there was someone I knew who had like the perfect one, and it was just like amazing on her art, and it was so brilliant white. But so if somebody has one, like, put it in the comments. Let me know. What are your white gel pen recommendations? And that's all I got for you. So I'm going to meet you on the other side with my face in just a moment. Hello. I'm back. Everything is a little bit cooler because it is nighttime. So there is not sunlight, and the color temperature is a little bit more blue. And I'm here to wrap up this video. So I wanted to let you all know that I'm going to do one more video in this series. When I finish the sketchbook, I actually fill out my sketchbook registration and I mail it back, and that'll be my final thoughts, and that'll make this a 3-part series. I also wanted to ask you guys what you think of me wearing my glasses, because as someone with astigmatism, I personally feel more comfortable when I wear them, but I do know that they catch serious glare, and if that's too distracting, then I won't wear them. So let me know, but please be nice. So also want to know, what do you guys think of the Sketchbook project so far? Do you think it's a good idea? How do you feel about having to register and pick a theme? I think flagging adult content is a great idea and something that's meant to be open to everyone, both on the content and the consumption side. Yeah, discuss below. I'll be back with you all probably in like a month when I finish the project and I register it and I actually make a video. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. Ta-ta.